How are you today?
I'm doing good.
We're here for your medical school interview. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a non-traditional undergraduate. I graduated in 6.5 years. I did all of it at UTSA. I've worked in a nonprofit, I've worked in student organizations, and I've also worked in a biochem lab. And I've currently just finished my NCAT and applied for this cycle. And I'm applied to all Texas schools, and I look forward to entering into the UT Health Science Center here in San Antonio.
How did your NCAT go?
My NCAT went very well. Actually, I prepared very hard over the summer. I took a prep course, and I'm glad to say that I overcame that hurdle.
Tell me a little bit about your experience in the biochem lab.
The biochem lab was a very interesting experience. A lot of diversity. I had to work with people that normally didn't see eye to eye with, but it was a good experience because I learned that I had to adjust to a different type of environment. And what I really benefited a lot was being able to interact with students and being in the teacher position, because a lot of times we get one point of view being the student, but the teacher has a lot to do with it as well. And it showed me how important it is to be competent in your information, to help students, being willing to help students. And students pick up a lot on how an instructor behaves, and that was something I found very beneficial.
Did you ever encounter a situation where the student was a bit angry with you?
Absolutely.
And how did you handle that situation?
Well, I did have to establish that I was the instructor and that there should not be a lack of respect in a classroom setting, but never to go out of line or to be disrespectful back to the student. And of course, try to answer the question directly and try to diffuse the situation and not allow it to escalate. I never found it to be something that was a bad experience. I always try to benefit from them.
How do you think your experience being an instructor in the biochem lab will help you separate yourself from the normal student that you're applying to medical school?
Well, normally I take that from being in the instructor point of view, because I see how students are normally needing guidance and how I can be that person that they normally depend on. And I think maybe in medical school, one of the things that we're going to have to be focusing on is how a patient is going to be dependent on you. And you realize that there's a lot that goes on, and there's a lot of body language and in between the lines interpretation that the person can have. And I'm more aware of that now because of being an instructor.
Okay. Do you know why you selected, or why you would like to attend the University of Texas Health Science Center in San Antonio?
Well, first of all, I love San Antonio. I'm from San Antonio, and San Antonio, I think, is on the front edge of advancing medicine. I got to work at the Greek Children's Cancer Research Institute, and during my time there, they were building several facilities in the area. And also they were telling me by, I believe, 2015 that they were going to be one of the top medical providers in the country. And also the changes coming with the military bases ever since America Castro came in. I think this is the right place to be. I think it's close to my ethnicity, which I'm very proud about. And I think it would give me a better opportunity to be again on that front edge of medicine and research and the new advancements.
That all sounds fine and dandy and optimistic, but what if it doesn't happen here?
Well, I'm an optimistic person. If that does not happen here, I have no problem with having to, again, adjust and adapt. And if I have to go somewhere else to fulfill my needs, I have no problem with that either. But at this time and point, I think San Antonio is the best selection.
What are your needs?
I have a need to have to create and feel that I'm moving forward. And I think that I've been in situations that, for example, in my undergrad, where certain things didn't work out or certain problems in life arise, and those can become blocks. And sometimes you just have to make a change and you have to readapt. And I understand that life doesn't always go in the direction you want it to go to. So if San Antonio ended up becoming a roadblock, I understand that can happen in the future, and I just have to adapt to that.
What roadblocks have you had to overcome so far?
Well, when I started my undergrad, I did have a loss of a parent due to cancer, and that became a big roadblock for me, and it had to make me a more independent person. And I was not a very competitive pre-med applicant at that time, and I had to overcome that. After that loss, my home life was somewhat difficult. That was a block I had to kind of overcome. And then also on a personal level, having to find how am I going to overcome this, and working in different aspects I had a group of friends that maybe weren't the best for me. School wasn't fulfilling my needs and trying to get me diffused in my situation. So I understand that things can arise abruptly, can put you at a pause, and you're just going to have to overcome that. But I do understand that once I find something that works for me, for example, I fell into a nonprofit called Dance Therapy, where I was able to work with senior citizen children, and I was able to find my avenue to get out of that roadblock. And that, again, is an example of having to adapt and go a different route that I never expected.
Is that how you relieve stress, is through dance therapy?
Dance therapy was one form that I used to release stress. I do enjoy dancing. I do enjoy working with people, which is one of my primary motives to going into medicine. I believe there's a mutual healing that takes place when you interact with people. But I also enjoy working out. I do see myself as a social person. I do like to have a group of friends around me. And also try to maintain a positive attitude. And that's always a good way to relieve stress, is not to focus on the negative.
So why not choose to be a therapist as a career?
I have thought about that.
A music therapist, more of a different avenue to help people.
I have thought about that, especially my background with dance therapy. It had a lot to do with mental health, and a lot of the people that we worked with were LPCs, and I do enjoy that. However, I have a certain appreciation for creativity, science, being meticulous, the machinery of the human body, and I feel that being a physician is an opportunity to work in those fields, and also it gives me an opportunity to be a leader in that field, and I feel that I will be able to use my potential the best going that route.
But you can also be a leader as a therapist. You can also be a healer and a helper, and as some kind of therapist. I'm curious as to why you would rather do it as a physician than as a dance therapist.
Well, as a physician, it feeds into other interests of mine. I've considered different disciplines I really enjoy, such as surgery. I really like psychiatry that keeps up with the mental health. I do like the relationships of developing family practice. I do like the opportunity of maybe working with children as a pediatrician. I've been able to shadow a pediatrician and had more of a hands-on experience with that. And I think as a dance therapist, I probably wouldn't have that same opportunity to really have a hand in the health of the patient. And also a big component of being a physician is the ability to speak with a larger audience, which would be the family of the patient. Having lost a family member earlier in my life, I remember when speaking with physicians and how their body language, their attitude can have a big effect on the whole group of people. I've had a physician tell me straightforward that I was going to lose a parent, and I appreciated his directness. And I've had another physician tell me that my grandmother was in a very dire need of further assistance, and those things were shocking. And I could tell that there was goods and bads with the way they approached me. And I've also had another physician who did my grandmother's surgery who was very warm, very comforting, very optimistic. And I can see how those effects can really trickle down to everybody else, because I would come back and report to my family and they would see comfort in that type of information. So again, I think I could have that type of impact on a family and the patient more so as a physician than as a dance therapist or a music therapist or an LPC.
So it sounds like you have it, very well figured out. Oftentimes that's a good thing, of course, but sometimes it's good to know, what areas of your personality, of your persona altogether, need improvement. Do you have anything that you think you might need to improve on as far as your weaknesses are concerned?
Oh, absolutely. I do like the fact that I have a love for learning and appreciation for people and listening. However, I am someone who's sometimes easygoing, which can work in a double-edged fashion. I tend to fall into trends, and this could hurt me in probably the work field. And I'm fully aware of it, but people tend to influence me a lot more easier, and I don't necessarily take a firm stance in what I want to do all the time. And I know that's a crucial point to being a physician. But that's something I've constantly worked on and have had opportunities to work on.
How are you working on that?
Well, having to be in a leadership position several times, two examples I can think about is being president of the Pre-Med Society. It's had times where I've had to make decisions where people weren't necessarily in agreement, and I had to stick with it, and I had to really believe in myself that that was the correct decision. Also, in the biochem lab, when I've had to speak with students and where they were disagree with me, I had to say, I believe this is the right decision and this is the route we're going to have to go. And I do feel that is a challenge for me, and I feel sometimes uncomfortable having to do that.
Even though I may recommend you for admittance into medical school at the Health Science Center, the committee may not. The committee may vote against it because it's obviously a consensus. And if that's the case and you don't get in this term, then what would be your plan to do in the year that you're off to improve yourself as an applicant?
Well, the first thing I would do is I would follow up with the medical school, and I would try to find out exactly what were the key points that, or maybe the deciding factor, and I would definitely try to hone in on those. Number two, I'd probably go back to working in a nonprofit with dance therapy, which is one of my main motives to going into medicine. So I would try to teach dance classes for senior centers, or try and teach in elementary schools and volunteer there. And then I would possibly try to find a position in a hospital, and maybe try to gain more experience in the clinical aspect, or maybe try shadowing more, depending on what opportunities can arise within a year. Because one of the greatest challenges I've had is trying to get in a good position in a clinic or shadowing physicians in such a short time, in a short period of time.